Hello everyone, it's Miss Bo here with this week's craft. And this week we will be making our teepee. I'm gonna zoom in on it. There it is, right up there in the corner. To make our felt teepee, we will need our felt teepee pattern, our scrap of oatmeal or tan colored felt that I provided for you in your materials packet, your set of wooden dowels or sticks, thread, needle, pens, a pair of scissors for cutting out the paper pattern, and a nice sharp pair of shears for cutting out the felt, okay? I will also be using a little bit of yarn or string. You can use your mini from last time to be able to tie those dowels together at the top to make our teepee. I will also be using some markers and colored pencils. Okay, so now that I have all my materials, let's begin. To begin, I'm going to take my felt teepee pattern with my paper scissors and cut it out. Now this is just a big half circle . With 3 circles, half circles along the edge, and that was what makes the little top for the sticks to stick out of, as well as the little hole for you to enter into your little mini teepee, okay? So let's get those little half circles out as well. Once you are done cutting out your pattern, we are going to pin it onto our felt and cut it out. Now that I have it all cut out, I'm going to speed it up just a little bit so that I can see at the other end with it all cut out, okay? See you in a second. And I'm back. As you can see here, I have taken my paper pattern of the teepee and I've cut out my piece of felt. I want to keep this scrap felt. We're going to use this next week. So go ahead and stuff that back into your supplies bag, and we're gonna come back to that next week when we do another really awesome and fun craft, okay? So do not throw these scraps away. Use them. Use them. Awesome. Put those off to the side. Excuse me. Now that I have this all cut out, as you can see here, I've made some little designs all around my teepee. And I want to go ahead and do some of those designs now, okay? How did I do those designs? Well, I actually just kind of drew them on with colored pencil and marker. So at this point, you can feel free to kind of express yourself a little bit. I did a kind of little zigzag design with little dots and did a little border. It's up to you what you want to do. Maybe you want to have a specific animal that you want to have displayed, or a motif, something like that. I don't know. Just go ahead and express yourself because this is your teepee. So now I'm going to go ahead and begin to color something on. How I did this was by basically just tracing along the border of the half circle. And you can kind of see how I'm making a little light mark now with my colored pencil, which I will go back over later with my marker. Okay? So one step. And that's one ring. I like to do several layers of color. So I'll mark that. I think I'll do the next one in purple. So I know that's a purple. And then I would go and add my zigzag of my mountains with my dots, and I would add something at the door. I want to do the door this time. I'll do that one in yellow. That barely shows up, but you get the idea, because I'm going to go in with a different color. So this is the door flap. That's right there, going up to the chimney. Of my teepee. Now I'm going to take this one and begin to add all of my rest of my motif. I think I'm going to do something a little different this time. I'm going to do a couple of stepped pyramids. Stepped pyramid. And what should I do? I'm going to do a dancing figure. There we go. I'm going to speed this up now because now I'm going to go over this with my markers, and then we're going to fold it up so that we can do a quick whip stitch. A whip stitch is extremely simple, one of the simplest of the stitches, and that's about it. So I'm going to speed this up so that I can color all of this in, and then we're going to fold it so we can sew it. Okay, guys? See you at the end. Okay, that was fun. I have finished coloring in my new teepee. And you can see I just kind of went over what I did with my colored pencil with some marker to just make it a little bit more vivid. Now what we are going to do is we are going to take our teepee and begin to make the cone. How we do that is by taking our painted half circle, and fold it so that the half circles meet like so. Do you see that? So I'm just literally folding it in half, just like that. There's my little half circle, my little notch. Okay? Now, put that just like that, because now I am going to be stitching, whip stitching, just along this edge, as you can see here, leaving a little bit of a lip to flap that open for my sticks in my chimney, okay? So yes, we're just gonna whip stitch right there and right there, okay? And I'm gonna show you how to whip stitch. I'm actually going to be using some really bright embroidery floss for you to be able to see what I'm doing, okay? So get your thread, get your needle, and let's get ready to thread. Okay, so here I am. I have separated my embroidery floss so that you can actually see it. You, of course, will be just using your regular old thread, okay? But I want, for the video purposes, for you to see what I'm doing here. So I'm going to go ahead and thread my needle. You can see my big fat eye right there. I'm just gonna pass this through. I have many strands in this one. 3 to be exact. Now, matching end to end, I'm going to tie it in my knot because I do want a nice double thread, okay? So all the way matching my end, and now I'm going to tie it in a knot, okay? Boom. And a nice knot. The whip stitch is super simple. I'm going to take my teepee now and I'm going to start right at the bottom, okay? So to do a whip stitch, I go in between my 2 layers and I pull going up through the very top to anchor my knot, and it is therefore hidden between my 2 layers, kind of sandwiched in there, and you can't really see it, as opposed to if it were on the other side. Now that I have that going through the top and it's sandwiched between, I'm just gonna bring it around to make a stitch. Just like that. And I'm gonna do it again. Bring it through, around to the bottom, bring it back up through the top just like you did in the very beginning. And that is how we whip stitch. Right up through the top, always going in the same direction, trying to keep the same distance between my stitches. It's so simple. That's all we're gonna do for this. Coming up to the end here. And I take this last stitch right here at the edge and pull that through, make a little knot. Perfect. And now I can cut this off and go finish stitching up at the top. Let's make another knot, okay? Because we need to finish that seam right up there. Very simple sewing, nothing stressful, just having some fun. As usual, crafting with friends. Let's start another whip stitch, okay? We're gonna do this once more with feeling, starting at the bottom, and I'm gonna work up to the top to about right here, okay? Because I wanna leave a little flap to kind of make it look like the chimney that's folded over there. So once again, taking my needle between my 2 layers of fabric and anchoring it by pulling that needle right through the top, and then therefore my knot gets to slide right through there. Let's do it again, just like we did before. Bring it around town and bring it back right up through the top, just like you just did, okay? This time going through both layers. Very good. Keeping the same length, keeping the same distance, meaning we don't want to go too far. See how I have it matching the stitch length? I don't want to go too long or too short, because then it doesn't quite look right. We want to get consistency, the same sized stitches, okay? And that's what makes for that pretty decorative stitch. Sometimes I like to go a little back and forth. That's kind of fun, but we're just gonna do a simple straight whip stitch just like this, just taking our time, making our stitches pretty and even. And very strong too. The whip stitch is actually a really, really strong seam. I have just enough thread on here to finish probably about to where I want to be. Let's give it a couple more before I knot it off. And just one more, and then this will be my knot. And you see I have that big loop, leaving the loop, pass my needle back through. That's what makes my knot. Let's do it once more with feeling. Knot. Ta-da! Let's cut that off. And that is the whip stitch that you will have on your teepee with that little flap. Now let's make our posts to go inside. I like to use 4. I think I've given you 5 to 6, but I think 4 works just fine. It kind of depends on what you want to do, what feels comfortable for you. At this point, I'm going to take my dowels, and I have a little bit of yarn here, and I'm going to give myself a nice length of it, okay? Cut that off. Boop. Just like so. You can also use your mini, of course. I wouldn't recommend that you use sewing thread. It's just too thin and it'll snap. But some nice good yarn, maybe your mini, that would work just perfect. Ribbon, that'll always also work as well. I'm gonna kind of stack these kind of like so, like I have right here. If you have the flat stir, same thing, basically, concept. Now I'm going to take my wooden dowels, kind of stacking them a little bit, and I'm going to tie them together at this end, at one end. So one end is going to be left like that. I'm going to go all the way up here, kind of towards the top, and I'm going to tie that rope around. So I'll show you, okay? So here's my dowels, here's the top. I'm gonna kind of lay this down. It's a little bit easier for me to show you this way. I now take my dowels, matching them up pretty evenly. And let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. Now I just kind of wrap this around. So my first knot is going to be at the very top. Right? Boom, and it gathers it back together. Just wrap it around. Now it's easier to hold, now that I've got that first knot in, and wrap it, and then I tie a knot on the opposite side. I'm gonna double knot it on the opposite side. So there's one knot, kind of like just tying our shoes. One. Let's tie another one on this side too before we wrap it back around and do a final knot. And 2 on this side. Boop. Nice and sturdy. Wrap it back around. And let's finish it off. Cool. Perfect. Give it another couple of knots. Secure securing that nice and tight. Not too tight, but pretty tight, because we're going to be splaying this out, so that's why I like to use 4. Done. See that? Now what we are going to do, now that we have our sticks together, we're going to just take them and spread them out like so. That's it. And the tripod is what makes the teepee part. So now I can take my cone, spread out as needed, just like I have with my other teepee. Voila, teepee number 2. Well, thank you so much for joining me for another craft, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this. Happy crafting. I'll see you at your weekly handwork Zoom. Bye. Happy crafting, everyone.